Tervetuloa, welcome. I'm Louise Morgan, president of FACA. I'd like to welcome everyone and thank you for coming. It's been way too long since we've been able to get together. We had hoped to have tonight's program in person, but due to the current environment, we decided it'd be still wise to be careful and stick to Zoom. Tonight, I'm very honored to welcome our guest speaker, Amy Iida Tervola Hultberg. I'm trying to get it right. Sorry about that, Ida, if I said something wrong. She's the dean of the Salolampi Finnish Language Village. She's going to tell us about some exciting ways that Salolampi has adapted to the ever-changing pandemic environment. We are so fortunate to have Salolampi. What a marvelous resource right in our state, where our children, grandchildren can be immersed in the Finnish language and culture. I love hearing about how our children's lives have been enriched. I am now going to turn it over to Ida.
Terve, terve. Ja tervetuloa, hyvää iltaa. No niin, ja kiitos Katja. Onko se mikrofoni noin? No hyvä. Hyvä. Nyt kaikki mikrofoni pois, mutta minun nyt on auki. No hyvä. Kiitos kaikista. Hyvää ilta. Olen Iida. I am truly Iida, and I think probably, I'm not sure, do people call me Iida more or Amy? That's a really good question. I was invited into a school locally today because they have 2 new students learning English. And it's the sort of irony of being me is that I have my fingers, all 10 fingers in 10 different pots at 10 different times, I think. But I was invited into the school because there's 2 children who are learning English, and they've just arrived. And usually the children are from predictable places, but you may guess where these children were from. So I gathered up the things that I thought I would need and went to see these children today. And of course, they're from Finland. And so I'm hearing how quiet they are. They're high school boys, and oh, they had to get maybe a behavior plan because they're used to more recess in Finland. And oh, in America, we don't have that much recess. We can't have that much recess and free time. And it was so interesting because I think the fortunes of my life being Ida are truly that of a comic television show sometimes. So I'm not sure which of my names I should really sometimes go by. But anyway, I'll be Ida tonight. And I certainly do represent Salolampi. I work with an incredible team of people. I have for the last decade, a little bit more than a decade, been in this role of leadership. But I stand on the shoulders of so many people who over more than 4 decades of time have had this Salolampi as a dream and a reality. And so many of you who have generously and kindly and voraciously donated time and money and talents and continuously do that. And so thank you to being a part of this community. We think at Salolampi, once you are a part of this community, you just can't stop but being a part of this community, because once you are part of it, we're so glad you're here, and you too are an investor and an owner and part of the Salolampi community for a long time. Well, I will share my screen this evening. And that's always a little tricky when you first of all share the screen, right? Especially from a laptop. And I'm really fortunate because I usually use a bunch of screens for my work, but we shall do this. All right. Oops. There we go. Oops. Okay. Oh, wait a moment. Okay, before I begin, excuse me, does anyone have any questions or things that they are having burning on their brain before we begin? Okay, well, we'll get started. And again, I'll just remind you the visual. You're going to want to check your microphones or your microphone pois. And I'll use mine like this right now. So check yours. Okay. All right. Well, let's get started. And some of you certainly are very intimate and you know the Salolampi site well. I happened to just be there a couple of weeks ago. One of the assignments that I have this year as an education consultant is to work in Cass Lake Vena schools in the high school and the high school and the Alternative Learning Center as one of their career consultants. And so I am encouraging many of our native neighbor youth to consider what is the good life and what is the next step in their good life. Not my definition, but theirs. And so I have the good fortune of working, goodness, just 15 miles from Salolampi 2 days every week this year. So it affords me to take some photographs every once in a while. And so this was just a week ago or so at Salolampi. It's full of snow, very full of snow. So I'm wondering, see, let me move into the slideshow here. In the chat, if you can, here. What do you know or have you heard about Salolampi? And can you provide that in the chat? Have you been? Have you sent people? Have you been a villager? Or were you many decades ago or not many decades ago? Or have you heard? They force Finnish at every moment of every day. We have all kinds of experiences that you can probably hopefully see in the chat as well. You've sent villagers. There's food, true enough. Other children of yours have been to other villages? We do. I'm glad someone's talking about adult weeks and adult experiences. Those have also moved as virtual experiences now too. So that's exciting to share with you. You're welcome to keep sharing as I continue here too. This is a picture late in the evening, right by our Ranta sauna. And like any good Finnish site, we have 2 saunas at Salolampi. If you haven't been, we have a Ranta sauna and a sisäsää sauna, so an inside electric sauna, because 2 is always better than 1. Let's see. We have to make this go. Oh goodness. Oopsie, there we go. So if you are familiar with Salolampi, you know that the Language Villages itself is pretty old now. We're leaning into many decades. So in 1961, Gerhard, not Gerhard, but well, the name won't really matter right now, but it does matter in the reality, and you probably can pull it right out of your head right now too. But a colleague, Jerry Huckabo, actually went to Germany with his family and came back and thought, it's really interesting that my children, his children at that time, were able to learn so much German, being in a German school, eating German food, being immersed in German culture all the time. And so with this philosophy, he thought there must be a way that we could do this here in America. And so he had this idea that Waldsee could be a place, a dream, and a reality. And in 1961, the first German village was held, not at the current Waldsee. So if you've been to our German village and you think that's what it certainly wasn't at that time. Other villages quickly followed. One of the precepts and notions was that it really needed to be culturally and linguistic appropriate. And so we couldn't just have hot dogs and sort of summer camp food. We couldn't just do usual summer camp activities. We had to do cultural activities, cultural foods. We had to use the language as though it's used in the country of origin today and in modern sort of ways. Salolampi came in 1978, and the unique feature of Salolampi in comparison to any of the other villages is that it cooperates with the Salolampi Foundation. We are the only village to have this foundation that is singularly dedicated to supporting the Finnish village. And together, they have grown up and grown together. Our site was dedicated in 1993, and we really haven't added much since about 1994 or 5. Yeah, and so we just keep adding to our community and keep adding to our collaborative community at that, which includes definitely the dedicated members of FACA. We subscribe wholeheartedly to this idea of the CLV way. We believe in this grand simulation, this authentic simulation. So when you come, you are entering this play world. And although that sounds like, oh, that's nice for toddlers, that's really nice for little kids, it actually is really nice for all of us. We're able to leave some of the stress, some of the anxiety of language learning behind, and actually lean into some risks that, for example, Amy might not take, but Iida sure is willing to do things that Amy might not do. And although that might sound a little strange and quirky, there are just risks that we dare to take in this environment that we might not in our schools, in our workplaces, with people that know things about us, where in this case, people may not know those same things about us. We believe in community-based learning as a whole way where we learn together from various age people, coming with their funds of knowledge that matter greatly in this setting. We, of course, live language and culture all the time, and we're in this day and age are really leaning into outdoor learning, which is has been always something we wanted to do much more of, and now with the pandemic and ongoing pandemic opportunities of thinking more outdoors and more with nature, it has been really, really exciting to think about eating outside more and just being outside more. So it's been a good shift to kind of unlearn and reimagine. And again, you know that we have many languages, and these are the languages that we offer. So it's certainly Salolampi is one of very many opportunities, and it's a benefit. It really is. There we are in one kesämökkipäivä, where we have sausages over the fire, just like you mentioned earlier, where you will roast the makkara. So I think a lot about how Salolampi comes around and about for and with all of us. I can't help but put a little bit of Matti in here. You know, or maybe you know about Finns and their buckets. If you don't, the background on that is that whenever there's a bucket, whenever there's something new in Finland, or maybe a new business or some sort of sale, buckets are a good way to get Finns into the business. And so if there's a new business, maybe the first 50 people get the bucket free, or maybe you can get a bucket full of apples for a certain price or something like that. And so there's kind of this philosophy of Finns and their buckets. And so in this bucket philosophy idea, we also have been thinking about this a lot at Salolampi as well. So the general kind of concept for us is really, we've been working hard at raising awareness and eager enrollment. We want everybody who wants to have an experience at Salolampi to join us and to be with us. We certainly want program quality of credibility and good program, so that we can build teams, also known as staff, so that we have a really good time, not only just teaching and learning, but people build relationships beyond Salolampi. And then we also really are working to create community capacity and sustainable systems. So this is not just 1 year of Salolampi and then you never think about it again, but how can groups like FACA and Salolampi collaborate? How can we move into the future together? I really truly believe that we are holding the hands of the future FACA members in some ways, and that's a metaphor. I'm not holding any hands, but I truly believe if and when FACA continues into the future, I am pretty sure we hold a lot of those interested individuals, although they might be young, and although they might not join up in the same ways that you may be now, they're within our reach, and we are eager to introduce them to your groups. We're interested to know how they want to be involved, and it may not be the same ways, but how are they, and how are they interested in being and giving? And I'm a full believer in Adam Grant as well, where he says it's a give and a get. What are they giving and what are they getting? And it's not just a simple sort of give and get, but what does that actually mean? So we're interested in creatively thinking about that. And of course, a good picture of my friend Tertu's bucket collection. So you may have friends in Finland who have those bucket collections as well. So if you haven't been to Salolampi for a while, this is just a little glimpse into our day. We spend plenty of time with the members of our cabin, and that is very traditional of any summer camp. You have friends in your cabin, you have colleagues who you get to know very closely. You also have friends in other cabins, of course. We spend lots of time living the language, leaning in and living the language. We do this through whole group activities. The entire camp will be doing the activities. Small group activities, sometimes those small group activities will be including some cultural activities or direct instruction, where we've been able to sort of differentiate what it is that villagers need as far as language learning, or as far as activities, we might be differentiating that on choice or just likes of what people like to do. But always, always, always in all the things that we do, we strive to infuse culture as well. So it's not, there's rarely a time that we're able to take language and culture apart and not teach only one of them. So that's a pretty big concept, where we're able to keep the Finnish culture and language as one. And even at the language villages, where we've been working with more and more contracts with government providers of Arabic and Russian and more sought after government sort of languages, we have been very intentional about keeping the culture and language together. And that has been a very key factor in success there too. And still more, maybe the best parts, I'm not sure, but we eat really well. We eat really, really delicious Nordic food. And sometimes we have meatballs and mashed potatoes, but we've also been really intentional about eating current Nordic food as well. So we'll have things like grain salad, and we'll have things like tonnikala pizza, like tuna fish pizza. Or we'll have things that, are coming in from the immigrants to Finland right now too. We'll have kebabs, for example, or other new things that maybe weren't in Finland 100 years ago, because we really truly believe we are offering Finland of today. And so if someone went to Finland, they would feel very comfortable and prepared to be successful as possible. We have lots of breaks in different ways and different formats. Some are more free than others. And truly, we've been leaning into the nature, which if you've been up to our beautiful site, we're set on Turtle River Lake. I just actually learned, and I've certainly been leaning into my new native colleagues and friends up through my Cass Lake collection or connections this year too. I just recently learned though that our site, which before the language villages owned this nearly 900 acres, was a sheep grazing area for the Bemidji woolen mills. Prior to that, of course, it would have been native land and used for various purposes, but it was actually slated to be the Turtle River kind of town hall, but it was so far from the railroad that it really didn't make much sense to put the Turtle River sort of proper, the Turtle River city proper or town proper on this beautiful property. And so it never really became the Turtle River city or town proper. So that it became sheep grazing area instead. And of course, the native property before that. So the things that we can learn, there's always something. Small tidbits that, really, I don't know, but who knew that you would maybe hear that? So, all right. So this summer, we are gearing up for, options of anything. Here's a menu, and here the menu is robust. We are eager to begin our summer with a community week or a residential family week. Last year, we introduced a new community week concept where community meant community. And so people came for residential purposes, either as a participant or as a volunteer. And we intend to continue parts of that this year. Although it'll feel a little bit more like a family week. So if you've been to Family Week, we'll have some programming, some very intentional memory making time. And I always say, gee, I think you might actually enjoy this more than a trip to Disney World or something like that. So of course, we introvert Finns, of course, would enjoy this more. But I think that when you speak to people who have tried out this Family Week, it's a pretty beautiful, beautiful week. So if you know anybody who's interested in that, I'm happy to speak more about that. this evening, I'd really like to focus on that we have quite a few kids actually signed up already for our high school language credit program, which is indeed an accredited program offering 180 hours of high school language credit time. And this will feel different. It won't be like a traditional Spanish class where you go for so many, like an hour a day over a semester of time. But it's actually various ways that we're able to gather credit. And so you may be singing, you may be playing soccer, you may be playing, you may be going to sauna, you may be doing a cultural presentation, you may be doing, maybe one time it's dinner, maybe it's studying some famous Finn. There's a variety of ways for us to gather credit and credibly gather credit, because we do want this to be an experience of valid experience too. We also have the apprenticeship program, which is really taking your language into a new space. It's kind of a capstone experience. And the 4-week non-credit experience is really for anybody who's just ready to be away from home, but also ready to be with us for a month, and not necessarily seeking a credit experience, but more of sort of a junior leadership experience. Our residential 2-week experiences are always very popular. So the traditional 2-week camp experience, but also including all the language and culture. We're back to being able to offer our 1-week sessions, and then we'll have our day camp back this year too. We're still sticking with 2 experiences of virtual 1 week, which we get to do tonight. So I'm excited to share that learning with you in just a bit. Good timing. Now you're going to say, "Oh my lands, she's for real, toilet paper." So during the pandemic, before the pandemic, actually, I was fortunate enough to begin doing some traveling to Finland on behalf of Salolampi. And so I met with common constituents, some of like the Ministry of Education and Culture. And I always meet with Suomi Seura in Helsinki when I'm there. And some organizations and individuals and businesses and universities who have like missions, like values, like interests, to start thinking about what connections we have and what collaborations we want to think about. And I know that being in Finland, thinking together, being together, thinking forward together is very helpful for all of us. One of those connections happened in the University of Jyväskylä, where we started talking with the people that invented Peda.net, PEDA.net. And it's a over 20-year-old platform that Finnish teachers have used for a very long time for delivering virtual learning or virtual experiences of education. And so when I talk to my Finnish teacher friends, they're like, of course, we've used that for years. Of course, yeah. I'm thinking, well, of course, I'm an American teacher, so I'll say this. We American teachers, here we are. We're just, teaching away in our classrooms. No idea that, of course, nobody could predict a pandemic. But of course, here we are. We have, so many people interested in being on staff that fall of 2019, I guess it would be. In fact, I think we had just a huge number, nearly 150 inquiries from Finland, I think. Of being or applying to be on staff. And not all of them would have applied, but it was just a crazy number of people were inquiring about Salolampi from Finland. And so everything's going so well. And then of course, we all know March comes and our whole world shifts and we have the chance to rethink and re-envision and reimagine. And we did too. Luckily, we had some connections with Peda.net. And so we began rethinking everything. And so we decided that virtual Salolampi needed to be something different. It needed to be something that you could consume from anywhere, for anyone, for any reason, at any time. And so all of our staff stayed where they were. All of the villagers, of course, were staying where they were. Nobody was going anywhere. And this really pushed us to think differently, which is good. I mean, it's tricky. It's not easy, but it's good. So we've continued to lean into this platform, and we are just, I'm working with 2 colleagues right now to think about how we could offer some mini sessions right now too, as we continue to kind of slog through the season of COVID, and offer some mini sessions about a variety of topics and infused with a little bit of language that you could maybe do at home and enjoy. So one thing we're going to do a little break, because as I was just referencing my young friend in the school here who was saying there's just not enough recess in American schools. Here I am, an American teacher, making you sit here for a very long time. We are going to quickly do, I hope that I have the sound on here. I didn't check that before I started presenting. So I'm going to stop sharing quickly and just be sure that I've got the sound. I get to see all your faces. Take attendance, maybe that's what I should say. Just kidding. Okay. Oh yeah, share sound. That's what I want. And we'll optimize it for a video clip. Back to the toilet paper. And then if you have four of something would be good. Toilet paper would be really great. And I'll give you a minute or so to grab something. 4 toilet papers would be great, but 4 of something would be good. And you're going to need a little bit of space. And you're going to be standing up. Has anyone heard of these hastetta yet from Arat ja Ujot? Oh, good. They keep putting more out. So this will be a great thing for you to hear about. So when you're ready, you can stand up. You can either shut your screen off or not, whichever you'd like. And if you have toilet paper handy, fantastic. Or if you have 4 of something handy, that will be helpful. Just move this back here. All right, and if someone, let me see, who do I see on my list here? Katya or Louise, can you give me a thumbs up if you can hear this when I get started, please? Thank you. Did you see what that child did? They just put the paper or the toilet papers around, stood on one foot, and just made a tower. So I'll put it to play again on full screen this time, and let's see if we can do it with this child. I'm sure we can. Don't you think? Aku, yes, pencils will be great. Stack the pencils. Was it too easy for you? I'm proud of all of you. You can have a seat. Nice work. Okay, so during our virtual Salolampi, we also wanted to get some activity in, and we think that that's important, just as much as you do too. And our hearts are beating a little bit now. It feels good. So we started building our virtual Salolampi on Beranet, and it's not a fancy or flashy. It's not like, bells and whistles everywhere. It's very straightforward. And I'm just going to lead you through a couple little things tonight, and just one lesson actually. So we're just going to go in the arts and crafts, and we're going to do the kuvataide. And our job in this one is, we're not going to do the Kahoot, but we're going to learn about akseligalankalala, and we're going to talk about color, and we're going to do a little color game, and we're going to hear and learn about akseligalankalala, and then you'll see an activity that you could do later and share with your group at the next meeting or in between or whatever you'd like to do. So we also designed these to be, so this is the general lesson. If you needed additional challenge and you needed more to do, more challenge in the lesson, and you thought, well, that was too easy, I need some more challenge. You could go deeper and get more resources here. You could also do review. So I'm thinking there are people on this call who very much could tell us some information about Finnish colors, or värit. So let's see if it works for us to unmute. So I'm going to ask you to do this. Nyt mikrofoni päällä. Kiitos. And if you see a color word here that you know in English and you can translate, say that to us.
Orange.
Orange.
Hyvä!
Orange.
Mikä väri tämä on?
Yellow.
Katsotaan. Kyllä, hyvä.
Green.
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 Vihreä. Hyvä. Violetti.
Purple.
Violet.
Hyvä. Violet or purple. Wow. Ihan viisas. Onko se lisää vai ehkä ei? Eikä se nyt on loppu ehkä. Eikö juu on loppu? So we have some things there. And then we're just going to, because I'm totally shortening this up. But I work with people who are much better at this than me. I'm going to go back to this one. And each of the villagers had their own login and passwords and things like that too. Then we applied that learning to this akseligalankalala information. So we wanted to be sure that it was some content that, well, universal content that could make sense in a cultural sort of way. Vähän hitaasti, anteeksi. No niin. So akseligalankalala was one of the famous artists during this time period of Finland. Sitten myös suomeksi ja englanniksi. And of course, he's well known for painting some of the very best Kalevala depictions. And so we know Kalevala is the national epic, the national sort of story of the beginning of Finland. Here's some information about how Finland has kind of changed and what land was in Finland and is not anymore. So Finland becomes a literate society, and the language becomes part of Finland. And akseligalankalala wants to be able to be sure that real life was depicted, both in his paintings, but also from the Kalevala, but also in his general paintings as well. So here are a couple that you may have seen actually in real life, or these may be new to you. This is known as Peasant Life, and this is the Old Woman and the Cat. There are many of them, and you can find them online. These are his illustrations from the Kalevala, a couple of them. There are many of them, and stories to go with them. And if you've been to the National Museum in Helsinki and looked up at the big domed ceiling, you would have seen these 4 pictures up there as well too. Or when you go, you'll see them there. And then of course we talk about questions, another Kalevala picture here. And then from there, you would get your assignment. And so here we really wanted to think about how to build community, because we still want community to be part of our online experience, our virtual experience, just as you do. We know now 2 years into the pandemic, we still want to get together. We still want to meet with people who want to meet and talk and experience the same sort of interesting experiences and talk about the same things that we want to talk about. So we have one more little PowerPoint, and we would have the villagers here decide what do you think about this? Well, there's a scale right here. So erittäin huono, like hyi, yksi on erittäin huono, yksi. Ja 2 on huono, ja 3 on ok. Ja sitten 4 on hyvä, no hyvä, mutta 5 on erittäin hyvä. Ehkä plus, erittäin hyvä. Esimerkki noin, poika ja varis. Mikä kaikki ajattelee? Onko se 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Okei, Katja sanoi, että 5. Entäs muita?
3.
3, no niin, ok. Niin? Entäs toinen on se vanha nainen ja kissa? Mikä tässä on?
What's that?
Vanha nainen ja kissa. Ja nyt, anteeksi, joo, Katja, kiitos. Nyt on mikrofoni pois ja sitten ota sormia. Sormia ja mikrofoni pois. No niin. Kuka sanoi, että 5? Onko se tässä? Hetkinen, Nancy sanoi, että 5. Hyvä, Nancy, joo. Mikä Taavati ajattelee? En tiedä. No niin. Eikä 1 lisää. No niin, eikä tämä on Defense of the Sampo. Voi ei. Tämä on vähän kamala. Mikä Väinämöinen ja Lohi teki? Jotain pahaa, mä luulen. Voi. Mikä Joanne ajattelee? Onko se 1, 2, 3, 4 tai 5?
5.
5, no niin.
Joo.
Tämä on tosi hyvä. Joo, tämä on tosi mielenkiintoista. No niin. Then the last part of this is to have your offline activity, because we also were really intentional about and are really intentional about, this is nice that we're gathering, this is great, but also we realized Zoom fatigue, screen fatigue. I myself was busy raising screen-free children until summer of 2020, and then they each had access to an iPad. And so anyway, that's a different story. So then we actually had this activity where people chose to do some of these paintings. They could look at this screen, they had access to all of this information, and then they could actually do either their own artwork, or they could stage their own work via Padlet or via the other sort of integrated ways that we can share things. And then they could share them here, and people could comment. And this is another way that our community could build and grow, and people could share their work. People certainly did dress up and show themselves next to one of the pictures. They painted pictures. Minna and Flora, Allatar painted over here. She painted the vengeance of Jokahainen. Here's one down here about the old woman and the cat. Here's another old woman and the cat done again. So we tried to do as much interaction as possible, and we really did have a lot of fun with this, I think, too. So it's exciting to see what is possible, because I think truly we're re-envisioning and reimagining what can be, and I think that's healthy for us, really, truly. So again, benefits, options, and treasures. I think it would be one of the biggest benefits, of course, from this is really the relationships that happen. And I myself am both a product and a process of this place. I just was referencing that the other day. I this summer could say fully mathematically 2/3 of my life have been spent in this setting of Salolampi, and I know for sure some of the deepest relationships of my life are from this place as well. We have had the good fortune to host the Helsingin Sanomat a couple summers ago, and so Uwe and Anna Sofia came from the Helsingin Sanomat and did a great fun write-up. We've had siblings come, like you see down in the picture with the beautiful little Mato, and there I am with a bunch of former villagers and my husband. I think also the skills that both our team learns, but also especially our villagers learn, I think are sometimes unrecognizable or even unrealizable at the moment which people are learning them, until they get back into their settings and we realize that we learn skills that are truly incredible and truly sometimes not able to be learned in other spaces. So really, we've been thinking a lot about how we can be safe. We went completely COVID-free in a residential setting last year in all of our villages. And we are thinking very carefully about that. We know that we're all about learning, relationships, and fun, but we want to do that really safely as well, and appropriately and cautiously, but also excitingly. So know that is truly our top priority. So I just also want to say again at the very end of this, before we take some questions, and I know Aku gets some time to talk as well, so I want to give you time, Aku. I really just want to say so much thanks to you. You truly are, everyone in this call. Your time is valuable, and I often reference time currency as part of life for all of us. A currency that you can't have again, and so you can't have this hour back. We're really, really, really so grateful that you spent it learning about Salolampi and the other options that we have. We are here for all ages, all stages of your life, really. And so we're eager to know how we can work together and how we can make more and empower more courageous global citizens. So thank you. And you may ask me any questions, but I know Aku is going to share some things about his experience, which Aku got to be in the first cohort kind of coming back last summer, which had its own, I think, opportunities, but also really unique feelings of community too. So Aku, do I get to introduce you, or I think I do? Aku, olkaa hyvä.